Hello my friends on the internet, Brian here again for more experimenting with the Automail that I'm trying to see if I can make. So, as you'll probably have seen by now, I made this glove as a test of how to make a glove. Today I'm going to do the first starting work on testing out, experimenting with building the Gauntlet part. I have a I've never done anything like this, so this is all very much experimental, and I have some long gloves on order, but they haven't arrived yet. So until the gloves arrive, I just grabbed a plastic bag that I have and will be using this to experiment on, just to get the shapes. Literally, I just cut a plastic bag and cut finger holes and taped it into a general, it's staying on my arm shape. I've got scrap paper here that I'm going to use to, just like before, do the general outline of how I think I want to do this. And then I've got the cardboard that I've been keeping as my next step that I'll make it out of, to see how it behaves when it's a little bit more rigid. The foam has arrived. I was not expecting it to be bright orange, but whatever, I can survive. I tried putting a little bit of the aluminum tape on it at one point, and it seems to have no problem taking that tape, so that's good news. The texture of this, I'm not quite sure if you'll be able to see it. Well, on this side, it's completely, really unusable for this purpose. This side is smoother, but still looks to have like the texture of, well, foam. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with that. I've got some ideas and some people I can talk to about that. So not sure what I'm going to do with that yet, but hey, that's not really important for this step in the experimenting. I've got this, which is I'm going to be using as my surrogate arm when I'm wrapping the foam around it and heating it up to give it a rounded shape. But this is for the foam step, not the experimentation step. And as far as my my glove goes, I have gone out and made my transmutation circle that I want to put on it. I'm currently designing that in GIMP, which is a Photoshop-like program that's available for free because it's open source. And I made a little version of it that it's not done yet, so I still have other things to do, but hey, this was giving me the is this the right size, how is this going to look vibe. And I very quickly taped it onto the glove, or onto the palm, and was rather pleased with it. Yes, it's a little small, but it's fits the area that it has to fit. So I was pleased with that. I still have to fully research how to transcribe the design onto a piece of fabric for the glove or the gauntlet, but I've got ideas on how to do that and avenues I can explore to do that with. I just haven't done it yet because I'm not to that point. So I'm not too worried about that. So we're going to get started with some paper and see what happens. I'll explain things as I'm going along with it to try and give you an idea of what my thought process is as I'm doing this. My first step is to get the very rough dimensions of a piece of paper that will cover my arm. It looks like I need to have the sides at an angle in order to form a straight line on my arm. Just trying out how it could look when attached to my surrogate glove. Behold my sunburnt arm! Oh, and a little bit of tape on my arm to help finalize the design. This strip will be useful and needs to be between the halves of the lower part. Before I go much farther, I should take a look and make sure this length of the gauntlet won't interfere with the glove. I want the top part to line up with the back of the glove, so I have to line up the strip. But since I don't want to lose articulation, I experiment with having the opening on the bottom. Regardless, the strip needs to be shorter. Using similar methods, I made a top part that will cover the gap. Then I used some scrap paper to let me attach the bottom to my arm temporarily. This allowed me to see what I'd have to cut to prevent the gauntlet from affecting my elbow. A couple pencil lines and some scissors let me take that area out quickly. Still trying to get a feel of how these pieces would behave when in the right shape in the right spot. Turns out I need a little more elbow room. Boy, I bet you guys wish you could see what I'm doing, don't you? Brian, get back in the frame, you dingus! But all I'm currently doing is bending my arm to decide if the elbow cut I made is deep enough to not hinder that joint. I'm quite satisfied, so time to cut myself out carefully and not hurt myself or the template. Time to trace onto the cardboard. Keep your scraps. Double checking my tracing. Okay, finished cutting the cardboard out, and now tape it to the quote-unquote glove to see how a rigid surface will behave with this design. Pleased thus far. I'm now trying to get a bend on the top part. I don't intend to have the top plate be secured to the bottom like this, but I'm doing it here to see how it behaves. I'm concerned that the top plate is actually too thin. It doesn't cover the gap completely. So I make a new version that is slightly wider. I just trace a couple edges I already have and then slide it before tracing the last edge. The new piece is a little wider. Not drastically so, which concerns me, but we'll see how it works. Curving it again. Taped in place, things seem to be working alright. But there does seem to be a bit of an overhang on the top. Another pencil mark to cut. It's currently difficult to take off, but that's because the top is taped to the bottom. The final version won't have that. It will have room to flex. The whole edge on the top piece isn't quite right, but until I can do more with the glove, it's about as good as I can get at the moment. Okay, so just finished the first draft of the prototype. I didn't do a fantastic job lining things up, and so this side is not lined up with that, and this is coming off a bit as well. but that's also partially because it's not the way it's supposed to be. This piece, top piece, should not attach to the bottom piece. This top piece should only attach to that strip of cardboard that I did in the center. This strip will be attached to the glove, and this bit will be attached to the glove, so that those can stretch so that my hand can get in and out easier. But for the purposes of testing this, I needed to have it be a bit more rigid. So I tested it out, and I'm basically pleased with what I'm doing. I'm not 100% sure what the next step is going to be. Next up, I think, is definitely wait for the glove to show up. And then possibly, yeah, I think next up is probably wait for the glove to show up and then transplant this cardboard version onto the glove to see how that looks, and do a little bit more of a similar job to how I'm planning on attaching it, to try and mimic the final result as much as possible, to see if I need to do any adjustments or cutting of the cardboard. This plastic bag that I used served its purpose. It let me attach the cardboard to this, making it easier for me to visualize and experiment with it. Like you might have noticed that I did this top plate, you know, with the arm hole, or the elbow hole, completely on it, but I didn't want that. So I got to play around with some of the designs. Not sure what I am going to have said during the sped up version of this. But I decided to move the elbow cut to halfway on both of them, because I really wanted the plate to be lining up with the back of the palm, and that's basically the best way to do that, is this way. Yeah, I really wanted this plate on top, and so then there wasn't really any other way that I could think of to rotate the other plate where I'd be able to have the elbow cut completely on the lower plate, but still have the upper plate in the position I needed it to. So I'm having to trade some aesthetics for functionality, which I think I'm okay with. I can probably make the aesthetics work, because I've got a big, huge area here where I can work with. But the lengths I made, just based off of literally putting my arm down on a piece of paper and eyeballing it, seem to be working pretty well. The range of movement I had with it, at both the elbow and the wrist, seem to be just fine. So the next step is to wait for the glove to show up, and then attempt to attach the cardboard as similarly to the foam as I can, without making it permanent. I want to make the cardboard version be as close to the foam version as possible, but I only have like the one glove, so I don't want to glue them on. So that's the next step, I think. See ya!